see a man walking around the house, and they assumed, like I think many of us would assume, the guy probably lives there. The neighbor called in that, that for some reason it's a burglary, because obviously burglars don't just turn the lights on and walk around the house. So the police officer did what all of us would more than likely do. They knocked on the door, and when the man answered, they said, "Sir, we've got a 911 call from a neighbor that called in a burglary. I assume you live here, but before I leave and make sure that this is okay, would you mind giving me some proof that you live here? A driver's license, a bill to the residence that shows your name and the residence." We've done that a lot of times. Well, I think you know the story. They ended up calling this the beer summit. The professor got very irate, got very upset. He ended up going to jail. And the very next day, the President of the United States spoke about this on a national level and called the police officer stupid. I've never even heard of anything, such a thing, the President of the United States doing this. Well, I kind of thought, well, this is just kind of a rookie mistake. He's new to the office. Certainly, we won't see this as a pattern. And unfortunately, since that time, we've seen multiple incidents where the President of the United States is commenting on local police matters. And he certainly has that right to do that, but as we've pointed out here at lawofficer.com, we didn't see a real sense of balance there. And that has then portrayed into, obviously, other issues where he has accused law enforcement of being systematically racist when there's been no evidence of such. And we've talked about that greatly. And I think the current president, is a good man. We just simply disagree with his take on local law enforcement. He's used the Department of Justice very heavily to investigate police departments. Sometimes that was needed, sometimes it wasn't. And he's made statements that really, I think, has inflamed many people and caused people, really kind of turned some people against law enforcement. Never been seen. It's been unprecedented. And in this era where there's been 10 riots since the president took office, many of them over police-related shootings, and almost all of them have been justified, Charlotte being the latest one, where the suspect had a gun and pointed a gun, and we all know those incidents. But this violence still erupts from it, and I can't help but think that the leader of the free nation probably could do a little more to quash that. And when you continually talk about the racism in police departments, it's left a lot of folks dissatisfied. Let me caution everybody. We have nothing bad to say about the man, President Obama, but I do think he has been steered the wrong way when it comes to law enforcement issues. And so when Donald Trump started campaigning, he was very vocal about his support for law enforcement. Now, some of you out there don't think that's genuine. But let me tell you why I believe it's genuine. Because he had no benefit to do that. There's no benefit today in politics to speak highly of law enforcement. We didn't see any politician doing that, really. But he continually did that. We continually saw reports around the nation where people were contacting us that said he would go to a rally and he would spend lots of time with local law enforcement. Not with any cameras around, but he would spend lots of time with local law enforcement. We've been in touch with New York law enforcement that has spoke very, very highly of him. And then he sought the endorsement of the National Fraternal Order of Police. In fact, Hillary Clinton did not seek the endorsement at all, didn't even turn in the questionnaire. We heard it from very high sources that it was very, very important for him to get the endorsement of the FOP. It was very important for him to get law enforcement and to support law enforcement. And so the reason I think it's genuine is because he had nothing to gain. And he continued to do it and continued to do it. And then last night, in the biggest moment of his life, you have to think. Here's a man 70 years old, about to become the President of the United States. He could have spoke about anything, and he chose to first open up and talk about his family, his friends, those that have supported him, and he ended with what you just heard. He thanked the Secret Service, he thanked New York law enforcement, and quite frankly, I've never seen on that type of stage a politician do that. And so I guess his resume is yet to be determined on how he treats law enforcement. I don't think we want him to give us favors, but we want him to give us fairness. And I think that's the key. I think we just want fairness. We want balance. We will encourage him to do that. I think that's a positive thing. We've spoken already what we think the Supreme Court may look like under a Donald Trump versus a Hillary Clinton. Once again, that's yet to be determined. But I think when it comes to law enforcement issues, we're very pleased. I think that that's the prospect of it. It's not a political show, But how do you not talk about politics on the night after what we just saw play out? And so we know there's been some protests and riots across the country today. We wish our law enforcement safety with that. I quite honestly don't understand it. This is America. It was a very close race. You know, it probably could have gone either way. I don't get into why it went one way or the other, but I can say this. I believe he's genuine, and time will tell. And if he is not genuine, we will be just as critical on him as we were on President Obama after he repeatedly continued to say negative things about law enforcement. But we know the transition is important. I was very appreciative of what President Obama said today about the transition. I was very impressed by what Hillary Clinton said today and what Donald Trump said last night. So it's a very interesting time, dynamic time in America. We'd love to get your comments on that. This show is about leadership. And what a great timing for that, coming off the presidential election and the importance of leadership. And we're going to have a very progressive police chief on a little later to talk about leadership, and we're looking forward to that. More importantly, we're very pleased that we wouldn't be able to be here today if it wasn't for our sponsors. One of our primary sponsors today is Blue Armor Supplements. I have them right here in front of me. It's the only supplement company for law enforcement, by law enforcement. It's GMP approved. We're very, very pleased to partner with them. If your supplements do not have the GMP label on it, good manufacturing processes, then you can't guarantee what you're taking is actually what you're taking. It sounds crazy. We've talked about the kind of corruption of the supplement industry already here. We know many of you out there in our audience take supplements for various reasons. We call it the insurance policy. We need you to be fit, be healthy, eat right, but we all need that extra insurance to be as healthy as we can be. So look at the supplements you're taking. If they're GMP certified, that's great. It'll be a little label that says GMP, but if they're not, we want you to look into Blue Armor, bluearmor.com. The safety stack is incredible. It's really needed for law enforcement, and we can't thank that enough. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do. We're going to leave this code open for the next 24 hours. If you go right now to our website, bluearmor.com, and they've given us permission to do this, and you type in the coupon COURAGE, you're going to get a 10% discount. You better do that quick, though, because they're going to keep that up for probably 24 hours between the show and now. And they just let us do that once in a while when we talk about it. So try it out, give it a shot. We have a little question and answers. They have some chat. You can go on there and ask them questions. It's live chat on there as well. So we're real pleased and real happy that they have come on board to sponsor the show today. The article of the week. If you're keeping up with our website, lawofficer.com, obviously the content is rolling pretty fast, but we're real proud of our exclusive content. And the article of the week called, "It's Time to Man Up." It's time to man up. What does that mean? Let me tell you what it means. I went to a doctor's appointment a couple weeks ago, and she sees a lot of police officers coming out of her office, and she made a statement to me. She didn't tell me the officer, but she said, "You know what, I just had the spouse of a 20-year police veteran in my office, and the husband is cheating on her, he's leaving the family, he's going through his midlife crisis, and the family's being wrecked." And it just really hit a nerve, because my entire career I've been very outspoken. Some of those of you that are familiar with some of the things we've written, you understand that. But I've never really spoken about this issue. And those of you that are in law enforcement knows that this issue of infidelity, cheating on families, can run rampant depending on where you are in law enforcement and what part of the country you're in. It's an issue throughout society, but in particular, law enforcement provides opportunities for that. And it really upset me, because we're better than that. And see, I've known people, I've worked with people that they can be a wreck at home, they can cheat on their families, and they can come to work and act like they're some sort of leader. We're going to talk about leadership tonight, or some sort of professionals. They separate the two. And what the article's about is you can't separate it. There was one particular leader that I recently worked for that was just a rampant abuser of his family, and stepping out on his family constantly. And he thought he was a leader of men. He's a coward. And if you're doing that, quite frankly, you're a coward. See, we need leaders in this profession. We need men of character. We need men of morality. I'm not leaving you out, ladies, but I'm speaking about what I know, which is men. And if you're out there and you're in this profession and you are not taking care of your family, you're not being loyal to your family, what would you do to me when my back's turned? Don't act like I can trust you if I can't even trust you with the person you swore an oath under God to take care of. And so, but with that said, the article goes into this. If that's you, that's okay. because you have a choice. As I speak, you can stop right now. Just as easy as you started, you can stop. You can ask forgiveness and repentance from your God. You can ask your family to forgive you if they're aware of it or if they're not. You have a choice to stop just like you stopped, right? And maybe you did that in the past, you've turned your life around. That's great. No one's perfect, okay? But if you're doing that and you're actively doing that constantly, don't walk around and act like, you're some sort of leader and you're a good cop, because you're not. It's just that simple, and it needs to be said. And I got some backlash, a little bit of backlash on that. I got a few emails. People were upset at that. They say, hey, I can separate my professional life from my personal life. No, you can't. You're lying to yourself. And so we need this levity right here in this profession. Now is the time to be honest with ourselves. I'm not up on a high horse saying I'm a perfect man, but I know this. I'm going to take care of my family at all costs. I'm going to take care of my community at all costs. And if I'm backing you and I'm with you on the at all cost, and everything in between, I'm going to work my best at. So that's what we owe it to each other. Listen, you live this life for a short period of time. When I was a kid, my parents used to tell me, this life goes by so quick. I didn't believe them. Remember that time between Thanksgiving and Christmas? It took forever, right? Well, now think about it. The older you get, the quicker it's going by. The quicker it's going by. I call it the window. And you're in this small window for a small period of time. You're able to do the greatest job on the planet, law enforcement. You're able to do what people watch TV to do, what people go pay to go see at movies. You have an opportunity to make a difference. Don't waste it. Don't be an old man and look back with a wrecked family or a wrecked career and say, man, I wish I would have done it. You can change that right now. If you're watching this right now, and I know I'm sounding like I'm preaching, but I'm passionate about this. We've got to be better. We got to be better men, which will make us better police officers. And I'm just begging you to do that, to really soul search that. If you've made mistakes in the past, you're making mistakes now, you get a chance to change that right now. And if you keep going down that path, it may be irreversible, right? And so let me encourage you. I know for a fact I had some people contact me, at least one person in particular, that did wreck his family, did ruin his family. But you know what he did? He got a second chance with another family, and he is committed to that family. And so you have second chances. That's what's great about America. That's what's great about grace. That's what's great about God, is you have a second chance. So let me encourage you to do that. It's a very small window we get to really enjoy this life. And you know what? I know for a fact you're not going to hear what I just said on any competitor's website, in any article, in any video. That's what I love about law officers, what I love about the folks that run this company, is we're going to tell you what's up. We're going to be honest about it. And hey, if you don't like it, you don't like it. But it's important to know. Just like you have a small window in this profession, we have a small window running this company. We're going to be very honest with you because we want you to be the greatest police officer and the greatest leader and have the greatest family ever. Okay, so thank you for listening to us on that. Our next sponsor, In the Line of Duty Films. In the Line of Duty Films, you've heard us talk about them each week. Let me tell you something. Today's law enforcement, you are critiqued on your training like nobody's business. Most of us out there don't have the time to train that we need to. The one thing we talked about, Colin Kaepernick, the backup, pretty bad quarterback for San Francisco 49ers. I don't even know if he won a game. One thing he said was true, was he said, hey, hairdressers get more training than law enforcement. He's right, and we've got to be better. If I hear this one more time, what's the minimum standard of training? I'm going to go berserk, because we've got to be better than that. When the bank tellers get more training than you, that's a problem. When the hairdressers get more training than you, that's a problem. When the police chief somewhere is getting a little more training than you, the street cop, I don't know, maybe they need it. But my point is, we got to train more. We've got to train more, and the best way to do that in 2016 is online. And there's nobody doing it better than In the Line of Duty Films. So check them out, go to the website. Be sure to tell them you heard about it from us, because here's what they're going to do for you if you tell them that. They're going to give you 2 weeks free. And basically they have hundreds of videos. It's documentary style. This isn't some entertaining 2-minute YouTube video. These are hour-long feature films that give you specific training tips. And it comes with tests. It gives you certified hours. It's the best thing out there. And so check it out. It's a family-owned company. We love them. They're going to give you 2 weeks free. And then if you subscribe to them, they're going to give you a discount simply because you heard about it from us. So check them out. We look forward to hearing from you on that and getting your feedback. So you're here today because of leadership. And we're here to talk about leadership, and we have the one person that I can think of that can bring you some of the greatest leadership tips, greatest leadership skills that law enforcement needs. Law enforcement is suffering from a lack of leadership. And so we're going to hammer this away as much as we can on the website. We have an entire section on leadership issues, and we're going to talk about things that are somewhat uncomfortable, but I couldn't think of someone better to come and talk about us law enforcement leadership than Police Chief Mike Carter. Mike, how are you doing, sir?
Good. Thanks for having me, Travis.
Now, Mike, I know you have been very progressive in this field. This is something that is very important to you. And I'll just generally ask you, when you hear that word leadership, what does it mean to you?
Well, as a leader of a department, it's easy. It's what people expect of you. Mm-hmm. But I think what I like our officers to know is they basically become leaders in the policing profession the day they take the oath, the day that they put on the badge, the day that people start looking at them as a police officer. And when you instill that in people and say that we live in that fishbowl, mm-hmm. people are going to look at everything we do, they're going to look at everything we say, and they're going to look to us not only to see if we're wrong, because there's the people that would like to catch our officers being wrong, but they're also going to look to us for that guidance.
Right.
There are 750,000 police officers roughly in the United States. We police 319 million people. Those 319 people look to us for that leadership. And when we sit there and we take on that responsibility, mm-hmm. that is something that is it's a calling. It's something that we have to do, and it's something that separates us. You mentioned the President-elect Trump.
Right.
Vice President-elect Pence said about police officers, they are the best of us.
Right.
They are the best of us. And I truly believe that. The officers that work with me at my department, and very rarely would I say my officers, because I said they're the people I work with because they're the people that make me great. Yep. And my success is built on their success. And their success is built on the community's success. And when they show that leadership to the community, that is where we derive our success from. A very wise person told me one time, don't take credit as a police officer for crime going down in your community, because you will also have to take credit for crime going up in your community. It's the partnership that we have with that community that helps us. And if you think about it, there's the community policing that gets us the street level crime. There's the relationships you have with people that give you information for narcotics work and other things. But it is that leadership. It's that community building. It's that working with people that makes it genuine.
Well, Mike, I mean, obviously you're here because you're literally a national expert in this area. You've been pushing this for years. I know you personally. You are the guy to kind of teach this and preach this to law enforcement around the country. But we post stories weekly about bad law enforcement leadership. Where have we gone wrong?
Well, I think some of it is we don't get the training to tell us what to expect. Some departments, they give you stripes, they put some chevrons on your mm-hmm. shoulder, on your collar, and they tell you you're now a supervisor, and there's nothing that helps you guide your career into those roles. And I think there's a cultural shift that we're going through in law enforcement where there were things in the past that weren't acceptable, that were accepted.
Right.
But by today's standards, they're not. There was racism, there was abuse, there was physical abuse of people, there were things. And as a leader, and when I say a leader, that leader starts the moment they put on that badge. As a leader, you either condone that type of behavior and or you don't, and you hold yourself to a higher standard. And when we have a culture in a police department that doesn't hold themselves accountable for that, then that's where it goes bad. And I'll tell you, I'll praise the officers that work with me every day, because they have done things to take steps forward to say, this is the culture we're going to run at the Sand Springs Police Department. We are going to do things to ensure that when the public looks at us, it's done in a way of respect. It's done in a way because they know who we are.
It's the umbrella, is it not? If you don't have leadership, that umbrella over your department, everything else sort of crumbles, does it not?
Yes, it's the foundation that you're building everything on, and if you don't build that culture of leadership and of good moral character and of expectations of excellence, then that's what falls down.
I think one of the problems that we've seen in law enforcement is we sort of expect that leadership doesn't start until we get promoted, and really rank has nothing to do with leadership. I want to get your take on that.
No, I mean, think about it. When you're dealing with leaders, they're those unofficial leaders. Of my department, I'm obviously the official leader, but every department knows the popular officer who is out there. And let me tell you, I've got some of those officers, and they use that for good. If they are using that for the good reasons, for honest policing, for the things that benefit the community and benefit the department, then that is good leadership. And I don't care if that person has a Chevron 1, I don't care if they have bars, I don't care what they have, because that unofficial leader is just as important as myself or anybody else.
Now, I've had the luxury of knowing you, Mike, for many, many years, and at all ranks, you were always outside the box. You were always thinking about better ways of doing things. You were always really leading from the front at all ranks. What do you attribute that to?
Well,
were you born that way, or did someone mentor you in that way?
Well, I started at a young age working at a summer camp and taught a lot on a ropes course. Worked with students coming in and youth groups and such, and so leadership was a big topic that we would teach. We would actually teach Fortune 500 companies that would come in, and so I was kind of ingrained in this. But then when I got out in the real world, when I grew up, and it was time to not be at the camp anymore, and it was time to be an adult. Right. I applied those lessons, and they're very simple. They're having the good character, the working hard, the doing the right thing, the willingness to give credit to other people.
And let me stop you, because I'm fascinated by all the leadership training, and I'm involved in a leadership course called Courageous Leadership. I believe in it wholeheartedly. I think it's mandatory for everybody, all ranks, to go to. But I'm amazed at how complicated we make it. Right. And what you just said is just simple, is it not? Right. It really just comes down to those simple principles. And I love this. My father looked at me the day I graduated the police academy. Here's this Marine veteran, 20-year veteran of the police department. He's going to give me the greatest advice ever. And he just looks at me, and all he says is, treat people the way you want to be treated.
Absolutely.
It's as simple as it gets, and that takes you a long way, does it not?
Absolutely. And we tell our officers, there's a saying that when I used to FTO, when I was on the street, do you want to do the right thing or do things right? Yeah. And I always taught my rookie that I wanted them to do the right thing, because maybe there's a time that by doing the right thing isn't exactly what that policy would tell you to do, or something along those lines. But what we tell our people is if they can come stand and look us in the eye and explain why what they did was right, we can take care of the policy part. But being a person of character and doing the right thing is the most important thing to me.
I know we have lots of people in our audience watching this. I'm joined with Chief Mike Carter, Sand Springs Police Department in Oklahoma. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to go on our Facebook page. I want you to share this with your timeline. There's nobody else that's doing a live television show on law enforcement topics in this country, in this world, really. And so we need to get these issues out there, because no one else is frankly talking about it. What I also want you to do is I want you to go in the comment section, tell us where you're from, and I just want you to tell us, thumbs up or thumbs down, what's your leadership like in your police department? Do you have good leadership? Do you have bad leadership? And then just kind of talk about where you see the vacuum is, because I think one of the biggest things I see, Mike, is, like I said, we're not teaching our officers from early on how to be a leader.
Yeah, and I also think that if when you do get a supervisor's position or an administrator's position, you have to set the example. Too many times that administrator or that supervisor gets in and the rules don't apply to them. Yep. They can now show up late. They now don't have to pull the hours. And the opposite is true. If you have the heart of a servant to your people, you'll be there many more hours than they are. Mm-hmm. You will be there pulling more than your weight, because It's that servanthood of you giving of yourself that matters more to you. You know, we've
Yeah.
all been through college. We've all seen the Maslow's hierarchy of needs and the altruism at the very top.
Right.
And that altruism, when you are a leader, matters more to you. The things that you can do for your people matter more than your personal accolades or the personal things that you're going to get.
I know you went to the FBI National Academy. I know it was a highlight of your career. Kind of tell our audience about what that was like, that experience.
Oh, it was tremendous. It was an honor. We went there and I took the hardest classes I could. I tried to get the most experience. I met the most wonderful people I've ever met there because you got that broad perspective of law enforcement from across America. I had friends that were troopers. I had friends that were sheriff's deputies, police officers, state agencies, etc. And you got that broad perspective, and you also got to see the best leadership available because of what they would teach you.
You look at leadership, leaders have a lot of responsibilities. What responsibilities do you think a leader has?
Well, I think that the first thing is using our leadership for the good of all. And too many times in law enforcement are we getting caught up in this us versus them mentality. And it's poison. It is poison. And I know if you're a young officer, you may not get it yet. You may not understand that it is truly that servanthood that we need to be doing to the public, and that sounds like some hollow words that we give to our people, but it's not. It is why we all got into this. And then somehow, sometimes we get jaded because of what we see out on the street. And then hopefully in your career, you hit an epiphany where you say, that is why I got into this, and this is what I want to do with my career, and you prosper because of that. And when you figure out that the little things, it's okay to smile at a citizen.
Right.
How many times do cops have to act hard?
Right.
Because we're the police.
Well, it comes down to treating people as people and not objects.
Absolutely.
You know, we put everything in a category, in a box, and the vast majority of people we meet are just good, hard-working citizens.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times we meet them on the worst day of their life, and we've got to understand that.
Right. And we have here lately, this has been couched in the terms of the police versus a minority group, or the police versus this special interest group. And so what the undertone of that is we need to discount anything they say because they obviously are contrary to what the police need to be doing. And how about we look for commonalities? How about we look for ways that if there is a group that has a complaint against police, that we say, is any of that valid? And if it is valid, what can we do to mitigate that? What can we do to bond with those people? And when we do that, we build those relationships that are going to make us successful. Yeah. Again, if you don't say that truly with the spirit of wanting to do that, if it's just hollow words, then it's meaningless, and it comes through. Yeah. But being a leader in your community, being a leader of your police department means that you'll take those on, and sometimes it hurts. Sometimes it means that we're going to get that bloody nose, you know, and I mean that metaphorically. But sometimes we're going to take that hit, but we know that when it's that young child that is going to now look at a police officer in a positive way rather than a negative way, and we can start building those bridges, that we've been successful.
I often talk about leadership leaves scars. Leadership leaves injuries. Leadership can be messy. And I talk about that in a class called Courageous Leadership for Law Enforcement. And in fact, we just came back from Oregon, a great group there, Oregon Peace Officers Association. But when I look at you and say, Chief Carter, leadership can be messy, what does that mean to you?
Oh, it can. Because there are hard decisions. The world's not black and white. It's not delineated in nice little rows for us. It is, you'll get situations, not only as a police administrator, but our people live out in the real world. The public thinks that our job is this TV episode where
you solve it in an hour.
You solve it in an hour, and everything is clear cut. And we know there are shadows. We know there are things that obscure truth. We know that are things that are perception based that may have not been correct at the time, or whatever the situation is, and we know that's our reality of what our officers have to go out and deal with. And so when you're looking at the leadership, and especially when you're an administrator and you're looking at that, you have to look at what was in the heart of the person. I've seen videos, if you and I don't remember the officer or the department. There was a shooting out on the East Coast, I believe in one of the Carolinas, where a gentleman was running away and the officer started shooting. I don't know of a single police officer that I've ever talked to that said, that was a good thing. I'm very proud of what that officer did.
Right. But it's portrayed that we are all defending the officer.
That we all defend the officer. Every officer I know said that was murder. That was wrong.
Right.
There's no justification for that. And so when we do stand up and we say, when we own the wrong things and we say we don't condone that, we also get to stand up for the 99.9% of what these men and women do on the street every day.
Yeah.
Because that's not newsworthy. That is not what makes the news.
Yeah.
When our guys go out there and they're standing with water coming out of their boots because it's raining so hard because they're helping people in a hurricane, or when they're saving someone's life through CPR, or when they're doing the other things, even mundane, going to help a lady at her house who had something happen, a toilet overflow, and she just needs help, and they go do those things every day that help people. That's not making the news.
Right.
And so what it's incumbent upon us is when you have a coworker that you recognize that, you send that up so it can be recognized, because we all need that affirmation. We need that affirmation that what we do every day matters.
Right. You like drinking through this hose right here? You like this big old bottle of leadership we're giving you? You're not hearing about this anywhere else, are you? This is what I love about it. Now listen, I've known Chief Carter for a while, but let me tell you, he's giving you something that classes can't give you. He's giving you something that books can't give you. This is the real deal, so just stay tuned as we move on down the road with lawofficer.com. You're going to see much more of this. So Mike, we're not even done. I'm just sort of teasing them right now. You talk about bridging that gap in the community. And I know for a fact, I saw this on YouTube actually before when I was doing some research on the show, is you had an officer-involved shooting. Yes. I believe it was a couple of years ago. And you did something very unique, very outside the box, very progressive, something that most people aren't doing. And I was very impressed by it. I'm going to give our audience a scenario, and I'm going to ask you why you did it that way. You had an incident where your officers went to a call. I believe it was a mentally ill man, and he showed a gun, put the officers' lives in danger. They returned fire. I believe there was a body camera footage of it, and you released that body camera footage rather quickly. That's a big controversy in law enforcement today. How do you release the video? When do you release it? You released that video rather quickly, but instead of just releasing the video, you stood in front of the video. You put a Google map of where the house was. You talked to the reporters of what happened, the context of it. You basically gave them a play-by-play of this incident, and you put context to what occurred. I just want to just throw that out there. And by the way, it was refreshing because so many times I just see videos out there with no context whatsoever, and you laid that context, you laid that groundwork. You didn't say my officers were completely in the right. You just said, here's what happened. Here's the context of it. And I just want to throw it out there and just ask you why you did it the way you did it, because I thought it was great.
Well, I think context is important, because I think too many times we let the short clip that is shown on the media and then their interpretation, the media's interpretation, and then the public's interpretation of what that is, stand. And there's nobody that stands there and says, this is the gray area. This is what that officer was facing. This is the reality.
We let people dictate the context that don't know anything about law enforcement.
Right.
And then that really gives a disservice to law enforcement, does it not?
And again, going back to leadership, I hope to be the servant of my people. And that means that if I can stand up there and I can take the hard questions and I can take that brunt of that force, that means that in my small way, I'm hoping to protect them.
Right.
And I'm protecting them not by any other thing than putting the truth out there, because that's all we've said. And when we go back to taking responsibility, if we're wrong, we're going to say we're wrong. And when we put the videos out there, when you put the video out there quickly for the public to see, we gave unedited copies to the press, and that's what they made up their mind how much to show. Yeah. But I didn't want there to be anything, and we've had other incidents that we've given them, and we've said we're not going to edit our video. State law allows us to blur things or to edit or to redact, and we're not going to do that They have the capability of doing that. We want the public to be assured
Right.
that we're doing this. And we actually, that was a very hard situation because we had the situation where we had a failure of a body camera. And so I had to stand there before the press, in a press conference, and explain that the body camera failed, but we're going to try to get the video. But we have an alternate view. And of course, every reporter out there kind of looked at me strange. Yeah, sure, the body camera failed. We went and hired an expert. He was a retired Tulsa police officer. We hired him to come in and extract the video, and we owe him everything because he did a wonderful job, was able to extract the video, and we put the truth out there, unredacted, and we said this is the standard we're gonna hold. Every one of my officers carries body cameras, every one of them. And people ask me, have they ever wanted to file a grievance on that? One of the things I'm very proud of our officers, one grievance in 23 years. One grievance in 23 years, and I actually agreed with that one.
Right.
You know, and when they said, Chief, we may be filing another grievance, I'm like, oh, what on? And they said, well, it's this body camera. And I'm like, okay, what about the body camera? We want better body cameras. It wasn't we don't want body cameras, it's that we wanted better body cameras. And that gets back to the culture, and it also tells you the character of those people because they want the truth out there.
It really is about deposits and withdrawals. I mean, by doing what you did and releasing the unedited video, you're making deposits into the bank account of the community, so to speak, right? Because eventually the community's going to have to make a withdrawal. They're going to have to think, they're going to have to go, oh, this body camera messed up. Do I believe him? Do I not believe him? But if you've made deposits into that account,
absolutely,
that gives you some grace, is it not?
Oh, absolutely. And one of the people of the press corps said that. They said, you know, you all are always so upfront. You're so open. We understand that it was a true failure.
Right.
The thing that you get from that, though, is that trust in that community, and back to being a leader of your community, because everybody who puts that badge on the day they do, they're a leader. When they see the way we treat our public, when they see the day-to-day interactions that our people have with the public, then when we do have the big incident, we get the credit for it. Yeah. Let me tell you, we're going to mess up one day.
Yep.
I've told our guys. I understand.
You don't have robots working for you.
Yeah, but we have human beings, and that's the other thing sometimes the public doesn't get, is that we don't have robots working for us, that we have human beings that we all err sometimes. But what I hope and what has proven to this point to be is when we do err, we get the benefit of the doubt because they know that 99.9% of times police officers, especially at our department, but I believe across the United States, are doing the right thing. And we have to keep that message out there. We have to keep telling people what good people we are, and as Vice President-elect Pence said, they are the best of us, and that is something that we're going to do.
The things you're saying just seem so straightforward, so simple. It just makes common sense. Why does law enforcement mess this up? Why do we not have every department doing some of the things that you're talking about?
Well, I think it's because some of us, we are flight or flight. You know, we've been ingrained in that, and sometimes the fight is not the way to be. It's not the circle the wagons. It's not the try to us versus them mentality. And I go back. That is poison. The us versus mentality, and I understand why. I mean, we've all been there. We've all seen that false accusation because.
And by the way, when do you battle? You said it correctly. We need to get away from us versus them. But is there a time when you do fight for your officers, and when is that?
You always fight for your officers if they're right.
I like that.
You always fight for them if they're right, because what did we go back and say about leadership? That we are going to do the right thing.
Do you fight for them when they're right, even if it looks bad to the community?
Yes. Yes.
Simple, isn't it?
You fight.
Why are we getting this wrong?
Well,
why do we see so many examples of chiefs and sheriffs that can't figure this out?
I don't know that there's that many of the chiefs and sheriffs that do that. I think there is there's the spin from people who want to make those situations.
Right.
And then there's also the hard reality of what gets released when, and not everybody has the luxury of deciding that they're going to release it because there may be something that compromises the case. Well, anytime something varies from what people want, then the natural reaction of the U.S. public today is what? Well, it must be a cover-up.
That's right.
when we allow corruption to exist in ranks, when we allow that decay to be in there, then we give that the groundwork to fester with people.
Yeah.
If we let people know that our yes means yes and our no means no, then they learn to trust us, and it's that trust, it's that community building.
Well, what I'm sensing here, and as I'm listening to you, this is fascinating because leadership is I love the topic. I love talking about it. I love teaching about it. I love writing about it. We love printing about it here at lawofficer.com. But as I'm hearing you talk, as I'm diving into this, all these things you're talking about really comes down, in my mind, to that leader having integrity and character. What type of traits, other than, because obviously that's coming out, you're not saying it, but things you're saying comes down to integrity and character. What other traits besides those does a leader have to be successful?
Well, the first thing is willingness.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to be a leader. You can be the person who sits in the back of the room, who never takes up the slack, who never carries the extra load.
Right.
And that is going to be one of the first things. Ability to inspire. If you, no matter what you're good at, and we have officers that are great public speakers, we have officers that are great instructors, we have officers that are great SWAT operators,
Right.
et cetera, et cetera. You use your talents and you inspire the others with the work ethic, with your ability to go do and make new things and to for your craft. And that's the one thing. Be good at being a police officer. If, and there's a number of officers out there that I think can look to their coworkers and they're like, that one guy that doesn't know his statutes, that one guy that doesn't get to the gym, that one guy who doesn't do. What we're all looking for is that total package, that guy who puts in that work ethic and he inspires others to want to be better themselves. And intuition. I think that we all know that cop that, he can pass by an alley and he can say that's just, there's not something right, and he scoops the felony crime down that alley. Right. And it's that intuition. But I think that again comes with the work ethic. And then I think one of the most important things is the humbleness, for people to understand that it's not me. When I'm truly a leader, I will tell you right here on a national program that it's not me. Right. It is my people. It is the people I work with that make me a success. I can't break down a meth lab. Don't know the first thing about it, but I've got experts that are. I've got SWAT operators, I got snipers. I have those people that work very hard at their craft, and together we make an organization.
Right. Is leadership, are you born with it, or can you be taught it?
I think you can be taught. But I think it takes the work ethic. And I think most police officers, that's who we hire.
Yeah.
Isn't the basic traits. You got to have a little alpha dog in you to be a good leader.
Right.
You've got to have that drive, that competitiveness that police officers have. And then none of us got into the job without that heart of the servant.
Right.
And that are successful. I mean, if you don't lead as a servant, then it's meaningless. And so if you have the traits that make you a good police officer, you already have the traits that make you a good leader. Mm-hmm. It may take some to get out of you. A lot of people take being a good speaker to be a good leader. I know some people that have a golden tongue that in no way exhibit true leadership.
Same with charisma.
Charisma.
Yeah.
You can there can be negative leadership. And I think it's those people that use those talents for good that truly inspire and become good leaders.
When I talked about what I talked about earlier, being a family man and having loyalty to your family and being a good person, why do some police officers get upset by that talk?
Well, I think we're all human, and I think we have fallacies, and I think we have those faults, and nobody likes that introspection that says, here's where I'm not matching up. And some people it's in the gym. They can't bench as much, and so they shy away from being near those people.
We're attracted to our strong suits instead of our weaknesses.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so when you have those weaknesses, no one likes those pointed out, but the gift we've been given is the ability to correct just about anything.
Yeah.
It takes the want. It takes the willingness.
Right. I'm somewhat familiar with at how you empower your officers at your agency. I think it's a phenomenal concept. I believe you call it the leadership team. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well,
but
yeah.
explain that concept to us, because I think every department in the country needs to really take a hard look at this.
Well, it starts with, and unless you saw this in operation, it sounds too good to be true, but it's not. A lot of agencies have take-home cars, and some agencies hot seat cars, which generally take better care of their cars.
Take-home cars.
Why?
Because it's theirs.
Because it's theirs. You have ownership of that car.
Yeah.
And when you have ownership of your police department, and it's not the chief's police department, it is that rookie officer's police department and the guy who works with him and his supervisor and that mid-level supervisor and that administrator, and it's all of our police department, then we take ownership in it. And it's hard because what we have is we have a steering committee, and it's made together of somebody from each shift, and then we also have a representative from the detective division, and we have people from the administration division in there, and we put them all together in a room, and we expect each of those parties to bring in ideas from their people. Because again, I can't break down a meth lab, and again,
Right.
I'm not a sniper, so I let those people bring in ideas for us and say, this is the best way to run the police department. And it was the concept I was brought in. My chief, Daniel Bradley, that I kind of grew up under, he ingrained this in us and said this is the way he wanted to manage his police department. It was so successful, we've carried it on. And what we've said is that it's their department to run, and they're going to have a large voice in it. Don't confuse that with the chief never has to say no, or the chief, the ultimate responsibility doesn't stop with me, because it does. But I care about these guys so much, and I respect them so much, that when they come tell me this is what we ought to be doing, I generally will give it very strong consideration, and most of the time go with that idea, because again, these are my experts. A lot of people, I learned something that was really good, and I think I learned it at the FBI Academy, you never know. But a lot of people don't understand why you as a person or why as an administrator say yes or no. Have you ever thought about why you say yes or no?
Maybe not.
Yeah. Is it moral? Is it ethical?
Yep.
Does it fit the financial constraints that you have as a department? And does it meet your mission? If all of those are yes,
Why not?
then why not go do them? But sometimes we don't think about things like that. We have those internal biases and the implicit biases. And maybe it's the guy who isn't the most popular guy on the department.
Right.
He's got a heck of an idea, but is his idea going to be listened to as well as others? And when we put those biases away and we say, why do we say yes or no, and we apply those rules, then the truth becomes clear of what we probably need to do.
What about training and leadership? I've always considered training to be a leadership trait that we must need more of. Tell me what your philosophy is on training.
We try to get our guys to as much training as we can. I've got guys that are getting hundreds and hundreds of hours a year, and you have the guys that get the, I don't want to say the minimum. I don't have anybody that just gets the minimum.
Right.
But I've got guys that don't get hundreds and hundreds of hours. We let that be a little bit to their decision. If we see deficiencies, we try to guide them towards the things that are going to help them overcome those. But generally, we try to get our people to as much, because I think training is integral into being a good police officer.
At the end of the day, I mean, you're chief of a 24-hour operation. You're in bed late at night. We won't talk about anything else than that, but you're in bed late at night, you're about to go to sleep. You're putting your head on the pillow. What do you have to do as a chief, as a leader, to go to bed peacefully? Because you have people working that night. You have people out there. You can get sued for sleeping because of somebody that works for you, something they do. It happens all the time. What do you try to do each and every day as a leader to make sure you can go to bed and you can sleep well?
Trust my people. Trust your people. Trust them that they are the people of character that you hired. If you can't lay down at night and if one of the last thoughts in your head is not your prayer to God or other things that you think are important in your life,
right,
and it's worried about being sued, you've done something wrong.
Right.
Because I don't think one whit about that, because I know the people I have out on the street are great people that have character, that are going to do the perfect thing that I need them to do.
That's good stuff. I think Colin Powell said that trust was the most important part of leadership you could ever think of.
Oh, absolutely.
What about trust in the community? How do you see that?
Well, and I think that's what we've done. We've developed what we call a policing plan, and our guys, I put it out to them, said, here's some initial thoughts, massage it, give me your thoughts. They added to it, subtracted from it, and we came up with a document that we're going to do every year. And a lot of it is what we were already doing. About half of the document were the good things. Let me tell you, law enforcement does a terrible job at telling people what we do right.
Yep.
That right there. Why are we not screaming from the mountaintops?
We're terrible at marketing.
We're terrible at marketing, but I mean, just folks, here's what we do well. And there's so much misinformation out there that people say, well, you all do this. No, we don't do that. Where did you get that? Well, I saw it on national news. And they compare you to some organization nowhere near you. And so we're grouped in, and when we do, unfortunately in law enforcement, we do when somebody does a bad thing, we all catch it for it. But when somebody does a good thing, that somehow doesn't translate as far. So what we need to do as agencies is we need to put a plan out there, and we need to say, these are the things we're doing good, and these are the things that we're going to work on this year to be even better. And when some of those do incorporate, we did anti-bias training this year, fair and impartial policing. How in any way can that be viewed as a negative thing by anybody, including our own people?
I don't see how it could.
But if you view things from an us versus them mentality, then you turn it into a negative. If you view that as an opportunity to work better with your community, then everybody gets something out of it, and you've built that trust, because people say the things they're training on are not only how to shoot well and to use deadly force, but they're also training on simple things like that. In an agency, do you train more on verbal skills, on how to deal with somebody and how to talk with somebody and treat them well, or do we spend more time on deadly force training?
That's a great point.
And if we're not training on how to relate to people, then, and which do we do most of the time?
Talk to people.
We talk to people. That's what our job is to relate to people. But why are we not training more on that than we are the others? And I'm not discounting the other training.
Well, I think what you're talking about is you're talking about a cultural shift in the profession. You know, we were used to, coming out of the 80s and 90s, the assaults against police. You know, our training was all the physical force and deadly force, and now we're seeing as crime has dropped in our country and police have more resources, better training, better tools. We've sort of neglected the verbal part, the communication part, and we've got to have a good balance.
Yeah, and another thing I see in law enforcement that bothers me is we like to give things names. When I was a young officer, community policing to me didn't mean anything. That was some...
What if you called it tactical community policing? Tactical in it.
Yeah, if we would put tactical in there and put
you could sell
some nylon webbing in there somewhere, it would have been great. But we give things names. There's a one that I'm sure most of the audience has heard of, and it's procedural justice. And the first time I heard it, I was like, okay, now what's this? You know, where's this coming from? What does it mean? And I think
it's fairness for your officers, is it not?
Well, and for our public.
Yep.
And one of the precepts of procedural justice is that people want to be heard.
Yep.
Why is that a bad thing? It's not. It's a great thing.
Yeah.
But how many times have we seen the officer that expects the person that they're placing into custody to shut their mouth, to not say anything? I don't want to hear your story. I've handcuffed you. You sit there and you be quiet because I'm in charge of this. And so if that leads to a physical confrontation where now the officer is put himself in jeopardy of a lawsuit because he's had to get physical with somebody, and all he had to do was sit and listen to that person for a minute, tell him what his issue is. And I don't mean that this needs to be something where an officer ever puts themselves in jeopardy. We obviously take care of the tactical situation first. But if just by listening to somebody, you can calm them down and they feel that you've heard their concerns, the statistics say that most of the time those people are going to be compliant. They're going to come along with you because what they want to be is heard, and they want to be treated and respected as human beings.
A recent study that we posted on lawofficer.com talked about that the police are respected at an all-time high. But out of the percentage, I believe it was 76 or 77% of the people respect the police highly. 7% of the people said, I have absolutely no respect for the police whatsoever. are we putting too much focus on the 7% and ignoring the other 93%?
Well, what is that number close to? You're saying 7, but 3 is the percentage I always use when I talk to people. What does that percentage represent? It's about the percentage of our population out committing the crimes.
Yep.
And do we expect our adversaries, if you will,
Right.
to do that? But I've even when you deal with somebody who's an adversary, who's a career criminal, who is doing that, I've had those people respect me and say, and they've complied. They've turned around. I haven't fought them to the car because when I've dealt with them, now there's some that you have to fight to the car.
Right.
There are some.
I love what the St. Louis County chief just said. He said, hey, we can only de-escalate so far if they're shooting at us.
Right.
You know, you can't
right.
de-escalate that.
Right. And there will always be a time for deadly force. There will always be a time for physical force. There will always be a time for impact weapons. There will always
It's
be
all about balance.
It's all about balance. But luckily for us, use of force and those things are the rarity.
Yep.
The majority of what we do is we deal with people on a relationship level, out on the street, and they don't end on that. Because, and this is another thing I point to the media when they talk about police officers is we see the same 5 or 6 incidents that may be years old
Yeah.
referred to as the evidence of police being out of control. Why, and if you think about the average agency that does 30, 50, 75,000 calls for service a year, why are we not seeing
Right.
30, 50, 75,000? Why is there not whole shows that are built on those officers doing wrong things? It's because law enforcement in the United States is doing things right. But we never need to be complacent. We never need to take that for granted. We need to always be striving to do better training and to treat our citizens better and to see what we can do to relate to them.
I agree. Chief Mike Carter, law enforcement is doing things right almost every time. And when we see a day when we combine that with great leadership at the same time, we're going to be much better off. Mike, it's been a pleasure. I feel like I've been in a PhD class on leadership.
Well,
we
thank
can't
you.
thank you enough. We're going to have you back. And thank you for joining us tonight on Law Officer Live.